Welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today we are looking at Microsoft Word documents and specifically comments. You see, when you have, say, a legal document, you might want to read it over. That's always a good idea. But what happens is you start passing that document back and forth. And if you are in a profession like being a lawyer, you want to keep track of those changes. And something that you can do on Microsoft Word is to track changes. So you can see here that the changes are made in what are called red lines. They're not always red, but usually the first set is red. What this is doing is it's not making those changes. It's just showing you what got added, what got crossed out, and also tracking different people who have made those changes. And when you get a legal document, you'll get changes from different parties just weighing in and everyone going at it as a free-for-all. And it gets very, very confusing. Now, the one that I wanted to solve right now that's really tricky is that once a comment is made, you can resolve it. You can even delete it. I'll undo it right after, but you can delete it for sure. But what you'll have problems with is changing the details. So one way you might want to do this is, if you want to clean this up, is delete it, and you might put in a new comment here as I changed my name to TechGiant A. But the real problem that I've been running into is that you have two legal teams going at it, and soon you just can't keep track of who's who. You have things like this: Unscripted Coding, let's call that my business name, and then just shortly after, somebody else with a very similar name, Unscripted Coding, without the space. And so you want to merge those together and make it very clean. And of course it gets worse. In this case, you'll have Unscripted Coding, actually Anson from Unscripted Coding. I could have made this more chaotic by putting down just Anson. And, you start looping in your coworkers. You start looping in your contractors, so it's not even tied to your organization. You start throwing in your accountant, your lawyers, your publicity people, marketing, all sorts of people. And you have this cast of characters on one side. And then, of course, in this case, where do I put somebody else? The other side will have the same problems, will have the same characters. And so what I wanted to do was find a way to clean this up quickly. And there's no simple way to do it. And in some ways, I understand. You don't want to make this easy for other people to just go in, start changing names, attributing it to other people. But you should be able to, in my opinion. You don't want to do it in a fraudulent way, but for me, if I wanted to clean up unscripted coding with no space, unscripted coding with an Anson in brackets, I should be able to present it as one united front. These are all the changes from unscripted coding. It doesn't matter if it's Anson, it's Bob, it's Jack, whoever on our side. Just one unified set. You also get kind of different information too. If you're really overthinking it, you might see different characters. Oh, the finance team cares about this stuff. The legal team cares about this stuff. Maybe we could divide and conquer. Whatever. You want to present it in one united front in some cases. So, how do we solve this? There's no way to do it in Microsoft Word unless you want to do like the very manual. I'll delete it, put in a new comment, and make it consistent across the board. So you have that option. But what a lot of folks don't realize is that Microsoft Word documents are just archives. So I'm going to copy this and paste it. This is my red lines document, by the way. So I had that clean copy and then the red lines. So I'll call it redlines.zip. And when you open it, you'll realize it is just a zip file. The new docx files are just a zip file. So you can actually create a new folder. Let's call it red lines. And copy and paste them here. I don't think that worked out quite well. So hang on. I can open it in 7-zip. Oh, I guess it did. Alright, so that's fine. So you unzip the file, and what you're going to find is that the Word document is filled with these XML files. But what you can do very quickly, just to understand how this all works, is go into Visual Studio Code, and let me get a new clean window here. In the folder. Okay. Okay, so we have all of the files here, and what I want to find is just all instances of unscripted coding. And you'll see that there's only 3 files that these show up. By the way, let's go back for a second. I'm doing 2 things here. Number 1 is I'm doing changes like this. I just remove something and type something new. If you hover your mouse over it, you can see in very small font, I'm sorry, but it does track who made those changes. And obviously it does because it's color coded. But separately, I'm also making comments along the way. This is stupid. Okay? So I'm going to take those out, make this clean again, and go back to our Visual Studio Code. There are 3 files that are used. Comments, comments, document, and people. So if I go here, comments, document, and people. Let's view word wrap. And let's word wrap this one as well. There we go. Okay. So you can see people is a list of the relevant people. What I think we could do is just delete a whole bunch of these. So we could unzip this file, look at these 3 XMLs, and for the people one, very easy, we're just going to list each of the people. So in this case, you have a person and a presence for each one. You have unscripted coding, Tech Giant A, unscripted coding, and unscripted coding Anson. And each time the name is mentioned twice. In fact, I think we're going to remove a whole bunch of people and just keep it unscripted coding and Tech Giant A to talk about it. If you go down this list, you could see it's very difficult to see, but if I go unscripted coding, we're going to see author, and we could just Control F throughout this document and look for W semicolon author unscripted coding or any name and just replace them with who we want. And of course we could look at unscripted coding without a space and do the same thing. And finally, one more document here. And these are the comments. So you'll see that each comment has an author. So same thing, we're going to make those changes. But this one actually keeps the initials too, which I don't think either of the other ones do. So just the author and people, just the user ID and author. But there's no initials. In this case, we're going to need to change the author and the initials for each one. Okay, so That is the introduction. I'm gonna just do this on the side because I think it's fairly obvious what we have to do. I'm gonna build this on Python, but basically I'm going to have it ingest a docx file, or maybe the file path to one, change the what do you call it, the file type from docx to zip. I'm going to unzip it, and then I'm going to look for these 3 XML files. And in comments and documents, I'm going to just do a Control F and change these things. The other one is I'm going to go into the people side and remove various people that I don't think need to be in there. We could go further, of course, depending on time and how hard this actually is, and maybe create an interface or at least list out who the current authors are and whether we want to change them, keep them, that kind of thing. But in this case, I just wanted a proof of concept that we could do this. Hi everyone, we have success. You can see that if I take the original file, we have all of these characters, of course, that we've talked about already. And through a simple script, now all of the names are Anson, myself. And all of it is kept the same, so it's still, quite some time ago when I made those first changes. It's not a replace brand new comment, so it all goes back to a right timestamp. But if you look, it always says Anson, it's always the right person, all the way through, whether it's Tech Giant A or Unscripted Coding. Of course, this is just a script. We could create a lot more sophisticated algorithms to try and figure out what we wanted to change, but we basically went in there and did what I suggested. Now, first of all, I wanted to say I actually made heavy use of ChatGPT this time around. The first version was already really excellent, but you want to give it some room to develop. So in this case, I asked it to unzip and rezip a file, throwing in a blank file in the middle of that zipped file. And then I slowly had it develop more pieces to it. And in this case, change the name of the docx file, add a temporary folder, clean up the temporary folder. And every time the code gets a little bit more sophisticated. In this case, keep the temporary folder in the same place as the docx file. And starting to get to what I wanted to. Look for the subfolder Word. Look for the comment, people, document.xml files, and it did excellent all the way through. Doesn't always, but in this case, I knew that Python already has libraries to name and look for files, duh. It also has a really good library to parse XML files to look through the tree. So, let's talk about what is actually happening here. All of this comes through this process file function. There's only one function throughout this whole thing. We have a bunch of imports. These are not things that you have to install. These are built into Python, so OS, sh, util, zip file, temp file. I don't think we even use regular expressions anymore. And then XML is also built right in. In this case, first of all, you're going to get the directory. You're figuring out what the current path is. And it is a relative path based on where you put that input file. So since it's right beside the script, we don't have to deal with it. It could get more sophisticated. But file path, then it's trying to figure out what the name is. In this case, relative, the file name is test.docx. You can already see we could start building out a GUI for it. You could also have it input the right file name or even drag and drop into the script. But for now, let's keep it stupid simple. Create a temporary directory. Then we're going to rename that file to a zip file. So this is where the rename comes from. Unzip it with that zip file import. And extract everything into that temporary directory. And this is where ChatGPT is so good. These are super simple, obvious things, but you kind of have to know these packages to know what you want to type in there. Just a lot of Googling saved here. Okay, next bit. We're going to find the next directory. We know that there is a Word directory in the temp path, so all we have to do is take the temporary directory and add Word to it. Next, I did this a little differently from ChatGPT, but I separated it into 3 files because each of the 3 are different in what we want to look for, but also in stages, you want to figure out the people path first because you get the name of everyone involved, and you could actually start building more sophisticated approach to it. So in this case, you could have found all the people, listed it all out, asked the users which one do you want to get rid of, what do you want to rename, all of those things. But for now, we did it very stupid. We found all the people, but we basically changed it to this dummy author, and every time it was just find, replace it with Anson, find, replace it with Anson. Probably not the best way to go about it. Okay, next bit, we go to comments, and this is where we have to find the author and the initials, and all we're doing is a simple replace function. Find the text, replace it. Write it back into a file. Same thing here in the document file. There's no initials, so all we have to do is replace the author. Next bit, we find a temporary zip file. Zip it all up. Oops. And then rename the file to a docx file. Rename everything, and then just delete that whole temporary folder, delete that whole tree. And then that's it. That's all that has to happen. And all of it makes a lot of sense once you realize how the document docx file works. What you want to do, and you ask ChatGPT in stages, because this is very straightforward. You kind of just need to know what functions are available, and that's the painful part that ChatGPT can cut out. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. We did this in about 30 minutes, so by no means a very difficult task, and we could think of ways to expand this to make this more general and more useful. But for now, as a proof of concept, this works perfectly, because every time you can throw in a text file and you get one back out where it just is Anson across the board. Thanks for watching, and we'll build more projects like this next week. See ya.